Let's discuss all of this with House Judiciary Chairman Congressman Jim Jordan. Great as always to see you, sir. Look, this first question is going to be a long one, but bear with me on the setup, okay?
Okay. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, Congressman Devin Nunes has been on the show several times, and he says he talked with your fellow Republicans before the 2022 midterms, telling them they need to have their subpoenas ready, their impeachments ready, all their ducks in a row so they can, boom, hit the ground running on January of 2023. But it's taken over a year to get to this point on Alejandro Mayorkas, even though the illegal immigration crisis fully upon us for 2 years prior to the GOP taking over. And that's only the first example I've got. Here's some more. Hunter Biden thumbing his nose at the House, not once, but twice, spitting in Republicans' faces for his little documentary, all while Peter Navarro is going to go to prison for 4+ months for doing what Hunter Biden did. The GOP has all but abandoned impeaching Joe Biden, and the House hasn't even managed to release more than a fraction of those January 6 videos. Top of all of that, Republicans have whittled down their already slim majority, 2 of those Republicans quitting on their voters, and the GOP moving heaven and earth to expel George Santos, a man accused of a crime, while the GOP let convicted criminal Jamal Bowman, he gets to continue. He's a Democrat, so he gets to go undisturbed. Congressman, from the outside looking in, it appears that instead of hitting the ground running, as Congressman Nunes suggested, the GOP leadership is running out the clock, hoping to never have to take tough votes against Democrats. Where am I going wrong here?
Well, it has been an interesting Congress, to say the least. And we got off to the start where it took us 15 votes just to get a Speaker of the House. So that took up a whole week. We had the concerns we had this last fall where we got rid of one speaker and brought in another speaker. So it's as you point out, it's been an interesting Congress. I do think, though, we've had some success with our oversight. Look, it never goes as fast as you want. The Biden administration is always making it difficult for us to get documents, get access. We had a witness today who didn't show up on this censorship investigation we're doing in our committee. But we've had some success, I think, pointing out, take the censorship issue. The Department of Homeland Security no longer has a disinformation governance board. I think the reason they got rid of that is because we made such an issue. You did on your show. All of us made such an issue when we found out through our oversight that this was going on. Second example, IRS no longer makes unannounced visits to American citizens' homes. I would argue that the commissioner said, well, it's because we're concerned about the safety of our agents. Baloney. They did it because we caught them knocking on Matt Taibbi's door at the very time, the very moment he was testifying in front of our Judiciary Committee. So we think we've had some success there. The impeachment process is always a slow process because you got to depose the witnesses, you got to get the people in, you got to get the facts. And we, unlike the Democrats, we actually follow the Constitution, follow due process, get the facts, and then we will present them to our colleagues and see if we have, articles, if we file articles of impeachment. What I'll say is this: I think the case against President Biden is pretty compelling right now, but we're gonna interview. We had an interview yesterday with Eric Schwerin. We're gonna interview Jim Biden. We're gonna interview Hunter Biden, and then we've got a few other documents we're trying to get, and then we're gonna make a decision as the House of Representatives, which our Constitution requires.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, let's get on some of the other issues where the rubber meets the road. The Democrats in the Senate GOP, they want billions for Ukraine while leaving our borders completely wide open. The House says they want HB2, a rather good security bill. What's going to happen?
Well, I don't think they're going to get the money for Ukraine. The Speaker's been clear about that. What I do think we should do to address the border, there's 3 things you can do to address the border situation. The first is what happened yesterday in Chairman Green's committee, the good work there on impeaching Secretary Mayorkas. The second is we use the power of the purse. We attached language to the spending bill that funds the government. And that language, I think, should be real simple. I'm all for House Bill 2 that came through our committee. But I think we're at a point where it should just be real simple. We're not going to let any more migrants into the country. Just call a timeout. In 3 years and 11 days, Joe Biden has had 8+ million migrants come into the country. We're on pace to get to 12 million at the end of his presidency in the next, this last year of his presidency. So why don't we just say no money can be used to process or release in the country any new migrants? Use the power of the purse that the founders wanted the House to exercise, the legislative branch to exercise. Use that. How about this one? No money can be used No American tax dollars can be used to tear down any barrier that Texas or any other state has put up to secure the border. Why should we have American taxpayers take down barriers, take down fence that Texas taxpayers put up? That is just plain stupid. So I think those are the kind of riders and language we should attach to our spending bills. And then finally, the third thing that has to happen is we got to elect President Trump in November. You got to get back to having a commander-in-chief who actually wants to have a border in our country.
Well, as a conservative, I'm all for immigrants coming into the country legally and vetted,
Sure.
and they can contribute to the fabric. But I do not want illegal aliens streaming into my country, and I think it is wrong of the Senate, and I think it is wrong of Democrats to encourage illegal immigration and to promote illegal immigration.
Yeah. Well, I want to be clear, Chris. What I'm saying is no more migrants seeking asylum. 84% of those we know aren't legitimate asylum seekers come into the country being released.
True.
We want to stop that. There's legitimate visas that come in the country. That's fine. I'm all for people coming in legally, coming in and applying legally. I'm all for that. But what we have now is just this, and it's when you have the numbers we've had and the situation we've had with the Biden administration, intentionally created, by the way, because of the policies they embraced on day one. When you have that, how about you just call timeout? Just call timeout.
Yeah. No, it's perfectly reasonable. The American people have certainly earned it. In the meantime, another spending deadline is coming up in March, as you know, even though 12 appropriation bills were due, last June. It's been one CR after another. What's the plan? Will Americans have to endure another fake budget CR?
I don't know. There are two bills come due in March. We'll see what happens. My gut tells me there'll be some kind of maybe one or two big spending bills that'll have stuff in it that probably, many of us won't like, many of your viewers won't like. But if we could get the language I talked about on there, then that's a potential win for the country. We'll just have to see. I was for a different plan all along. I was for a long-term funding bill, CR, right. Call it what you want, that would kick in the 1% cut. So, because if we're in a CR when we get past April 30th, there's an automatic cut that kicks in. That's the leverage you need to actually get some policy that makes sense, policy like I just talked about. Concerning our southern border.
Just one citizen's vote here. I'm for regular order. That's just me, but that's just me.
I hear you.
Finally, Congressman, we're in an election year. Let me ask you to put your political hat on. There are a lot of reports out there. Democrats are getting ready to swap out Joe Biden with somebody like, somebody who's not vetted and who won't get tough questions from the press, like Michelle Obama. Do you think Joe Biden actually makes it all the way to November?
I still do. I know. I've heard the speculation on replacing him with Gavin Newsom or whoever, and they'll do it sometime around the convention or something. That may happen, but I don't think it matters. I think because whether it's Joe Biden at the helm or some other Democrat, the left's policies are bad for the country. And I think this election is real simple. In 3 years and 11 days, we went from a secure border to no border. We went from safe streets to record crime, from $2 gas to $4 gas, from stable prices to record inflation, from strength in the Oval Office and President Trump to weakness in Joe Biden. It's why we have Hamas and Hezbollah doing the terrible things they did to our best friend in the state of Israel, coming into Russia, you name it. And, of course, these agencies have been turned against the American people. That's the campaign. Which team do you want to? Who do you want in office? Which team are you on? I think the American people have common sense, and they're going to say, we want Trump. We want that team, if it's Joe Biden or if it's Newsom or whoever they put up.